Well, namaste today. We're glad to get another opportunity to share some amazing truths with people. Truths that it appears many not only don't know about, have no consciousness of that they even should. And uh, there seems to be a piece that's going on. Well, lots of pieces going on, but it's quite amazing that we're in this time in history and all that's going on and all that's shifting. I think if you look around, you can see all kinds of things shifting. Uh, yeah, there's many things in front of us, and as it works out, actually for quite some time, there's going to be kind of like an immediate thing, but this awakening won't be complete for probably at least 100 years. So uh, the universe is kind of shifting how Source does things, and so it's all wonderful, but certainly foreign to those people that are coming out of Christianity. So today we're looking at the revelation of Adam. Uh, this is another ancient text, and so I'll just a little bit set the stage. This is going to, in many ways, explain a lot of the questions that the Jews created in the writing of Genesis. Uh, it it, uh, it changes the timelines. It changes the perspective. It changes the intent of Source, and brings much gnosis, which is, if you're not aware of that statement, which is what everything in the universe revolves around, is gnosis, or knowledge. And this isn't head knowledge. Uh, I've talked about it a little in the past, direct knowledge, and it is inevitably, there is kind of even a little shift going on there between people who are functioning in head knowledge and people who are beginning to manifest in direct knowledge. And that's all part of the changing of the human. Uh, if you've ever asked yourself, why does this person continue to do this after all of this truth that's been put in front of them, then you really have the answer. The question is the answer. They're still continuing to do these things because to them it's not true, it's not direct knowledge. And so when you receive from the universe answers to the questions, it's direct knowledge, and people that are interested in truth seem to just know. And so, everybody has some form of knowing, but there's kind of a difference in calibration between those people that are receiving divine direct knowledge and those people who are, I don't even want to use the word intuitive, because intuition in its purest form comes from your higher self. It's the release of knowledge that you already possess. And that's kind of hard for people to understand, how we really are created and what we really are capable of. And I suspect there's a lot more reasons why than maybe most of us will know, maybe in this lifetime even. But nonetheless, there is certainly a difference, and so it's kind of beginning to manifest at many different levels, and but it's very critical. It does have value and it has meaning. Why that is the way that people one by one are popping up or starting to function, and so the revelation of Adam. This is a most ancient book. This comes, the timing and the placement of this comes at the end of Adam's life, and they're sure to teach you a lot about Cain and Abel, but in the Bible you hear almost nothing about the son Seth, and it's quite funny because the being that started in the 1960s, the revelation of truth, was the spirit Seth. And I think when you see this, if you don't know anything about Seth, you may get on YouTube and go watch some of the channelings from the 1960s that came through Jane Roberts of Seth, and it's just pure wisdom over and over and over and over again, and she gave thousands of channels, and they actually did exactly the same thing. With most of those channelings were hidden. They were so deep, they were so intense, and that most people couldn't deal with them, and Christianity certainly didn't want you to find the truth out. And so all of that was to lead to the point here. I think as we go along through this, you might be surprised. I don't think you'll at how easy it is to recognize just today why the Catholic Church works so diligently to destroy the truth. So we have the ancient concepts that existed even before Yeshua did. So now we're predating Christianity by 312 years to Yeshua, and then from Yeshua, we're predating Yeshua by several thousand years. And so why is the whole predating thing so important? Because it's only when you get out of the system that is controlling your mind, it's only when you get out of it that you can actually reflect or turn and look and see and be an observer of what they were actually doing, and how critical they were about destroying every document that they could find, as well as the people. And just so you know, they killed millions of Gnostics, millions, and that may be on the light side, to be quite honest with you. Over the course of several hundred years, they wiped out the whole concept of Gnosticism, the true teachings of Yeshua. And so the revelation of Adam, this is the revelation of Adam, and Adam is speaking to his son. The revelation that Adam taught his son Seth in the 700th year, and he said, listen to my words, my son Seth. I think that we could probably all do well being, if you would, a spirit descendant of Seth and of source and of higher consciousness, to recognize then that call is to you. It's so funny because everything that Yeshua taught was about you having direct knowledge is the only way you can embrace reality. And since most people are not functioning in that realm and have no knowledge of it, and in many cases I've found have no desire for it, they are fully okay with what they're going through. But here's the thing that I'll also say that goes with that. The universe is not going to allow you to not awaken. You say, well, there's things that says that these people here. That's absolutely true. It has to be a choice that is made by you, but because there's so much woo-woo out there about there is no constraints, there is no, it's all just whatever I believe is truth, and while that may be right in an avatar state, there is a right and wrong that exists in the universe. And Source is not going to allow the wrong to continue on forever. And so that's why we're here at the beginning of an awakening, and that's why that awakening will continue on for another 100 years, which most of us will be dead and our grandchildren will be dead by the time that happens. So the fullness of it. And so this is where we get into the beginning of the creation story. I would just say that you might want to put a seatbelt on, because you're gonna want to fall out of your chair a few times as you begin to see these ancient texts that predate the book of Genesis. Really, really profound, because it verifies what the secret gospel of Philip and the gospel of John, and all of which, thank goodness, at this level we've already seen. Many of you are struggling, and I know you are, you're struggling with the whole concept of archons. And of course, you've got lots of people that are willing to help you be discouraged, even if it is in ignorance. They don't believe it, and so they have no problems in filling your mind full of doubt so that you also aren't sure about what you believe either. And that's where most people that I recognize are functioning right now. So I hope this will help you to understand that there are forces. Adam is speaking in here about the archons. He is speaking about the demiurge, who created not only the archons, created humans. And so why am I setting this up? As we read it, you will see that Adam had a real thing to deal with, because Adam lived a perfect life until he didn't. And then when he didn't, and it is very similar, and yet in context, it's not even remotely close to what the Jews feed people. So let's see. And so this is Adam speaking. He says, after God created me out of earth. Now, there's a term there, and I want to ask this to try to help you set the intention. When you heard that one little statement made, and God created, where did your mind go? And if you don't know where your mind went, then please quit being mindless and pay attention to where your mind goes. Okay? You're the only one that can control yourself. And if you choose not to, you will end up wherever the world, if you would, this concept of materiality, wherever it chooses to lead you to, and you'll buy it hook, line, and sinker, just like you always have in the past. So it's vitally important that you begin to mature and recognize and understand that you must take control of your mind. Your source is not going to do that for you. And if you want to be mindless, then continue to be mindless. But when you begin to recognize the criticalness of what's going on in the time we're living in, and the prices of the full complexity of it, then it's going to be quite a loss. Let me just say it like that. After God created me out of her earth, along with your mother Eve, so we at least know that whatever God is created both him and Eve. That's one of the main questions. And after God created me out of earth, along with Mother Eve, I went about with her in a glory that she had beheld in the eternal realm that we had come from. And so here again, this is where the beginning of the shift, and it's been quite amazing to me. It's becoming very easy for me to recognize why this was done to deceive the masses, and it really has been to the hurt of all humanity, okay? And so I thought it quite strange that Adam would recognize, and you notice that there isn't any ego in him, because he doesn't immediately have to prove how he is the one. In fact, he openly, in humility, admits that it was Eve that saw the eternal, not he himself. In fact, you'll find out as we go that she is actually the one who explained eternity and the realms that exist to Adam. Really significant. And I went about with her in glory that she had beheld in the eternal realm we had come from. No concept of him seeing that. So if you read this from face value, Adam was not enlightened, even though he was supernatural. Pretty profound. She instructed me in the knowledge of the eternal God. Wow. Have you ever heard that in the book of Genesis? We resembled the great eternal angels, for we were superior to the God who had created us. Let that sink into your mind a second. He speaks of them together in the recognition that they were greater than God. Now, if you're functioning from a Christian perspective, because you can't help yourself, that's all that you've known, that's what your program is, is that God is Yahweh, Jehovah, and he's the creator, because in Genesis, the Bible tells me that that's the case. Okay? And so this concept of God is very, very much, in fact, perfectly in tune with what is being revealed even in this time through channelings and direct knowledge given directly from source to individual beings for the blessing and the intention of helping and healing humanity. Okay? And so we resembled the great eternal angels, for we were superior to the God who had created us. Now, I think all of you who are in Christianity knows that if you go to your church friends tomorrow and you tell them that they're greater than the God who created them, you're probably not going to be friends for very much longer after that. After they castigate you with the words from their mouth about how corrupt you are and that you're going to spend eternity with the devil in hell. Okay? And so we resembled the great eternal angels, for we were superior to the God who had created us and the powers with him. Now we have the God who created and the Elohim, the powerful ones that existed with the God who created. Okay? So I'm setting the stage for the things that you see in John, because if you read this, most people are never going to pick up what I've already shared with you about this. All right? Very, very, very intentionally set for enlightened minds. It's not for unenlightened people that are seeking to become something that they're not. This is intended for people who have knowledge of what they are already. And that's the big dividing line that exists right now. And so the glory in our hearts, I jumped. We resembled the great eternal angels, for we were superior to the God who had created us. And there was a word I wanted to say there. And I want every one of you, if you dare, if you don't believe, I don't care what you do. But for those people that are actually pure in their heart, I would like us to take just a second and set intention a part of the journey which is underway for those who are not seeking but are in the process of remembering. See, the concept that you're seeking something indicates that you are depleted of something. That is to say, you don't have it. So you're not enlightened, you're not supernatural, you're never going to be, because you don't have it. You can't make what you aren't. You can only see what you are. Did you hear that? That's not putting condemnation on anyone. It is bringing clarity to the realities that exist that 99% of the people, especially in America, are living in total oblivion to. They have no consciousness. There is no gnosis in them. They only live in the fractal material world. So, he says, we resembled the great eternal angel, for we were superior to the God who had created us and the powers with him, whom we did not know. So when Adam was speaking to God, who was he speaking to? And when God was speaking to Adam, who was speaking to Adam? It's quite important that we know these things. And so God, the ruler of the realms and the powers, angrily divided us. And for those of you who might be a little closer to initiation, you have some gnosis, you already know and understand that it had nothing to do with the rib, that actually the ancient texts say that what the demiurge did, God is the demiurge, that the demiurge ripped the being in two parts to throw humanity into complete and total imbalance. Whether you know it or not, there is a metaphor to marriage, and marriage is the reestablishment. It's the human metaphor of reestablishment of the completion of the soul, the completion of the being. And I've said that a lot of what you're seeing with this gender issue that's going on, I'm beginning little by little to receive pieces of that and find peace with that, because in reality, what that is that is a soul that has been diminished, that desires to find what it was. Okay? Please hear that. All humans were complete and balanced, both male and female, which is exactly what Yahusha is talking about when he says that the two must become one. You must go inside and the two must become one. That's not a man and a woman, and if that's what you were taught, which is what most people were taught, they were blowing smoke in places that you probably didn't appreciate it if you'd have known what the truth is. All of those references about the marriage is about you. They're not about a man and a woman. They're not about us being married so that we can go to the supper and we can eat with the king and blah, 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 blah. All of the Christian BS that is used for creation and the relationship between men and women. And Yahusha came and he pissed them off because he stirred all of that stuff up, and he showed them that they were teaching false truth, and they knew they were teaching false truth that was done intentionally, because Christianity is the slave of the God. Christianity serves the God. Now, if you want the proper definition of that, Christianity is another archon of the demiurge, God. And so then we became two beings. So what happened? They ripped him apart. That's pretty crazy. And angrily divided us. So this wasn't something that was done out of peace. It wasn't a demiurge, a kind, loving, benevolent God who came over and put Adam to sleep after he created him out of mud. And then he reached inside of him and broke a rib off. And he said, I'll make a being for this being out of part of him, and they'll be joined together. That's not how it happened at all. They were split. Feminine and masculine were separated. That's how humanity was brought in the disparity in which we all live in, called reality. So then we became two beings, and the glory in our hearts departed from your mother Eve and me. So the concept of splitting masculine and feminine makes you void of the knowledge of the glory that you are. And that's where you are today. Still living in that condition. The glory in our hearts departed from your mother Eve. I'd like you to make the same kind of sidestep again if you pay attention to words. Notice Adam never once tells you in anything that we've read to this point that the glory existed in him. You had to change the narrative to make that happen in the Bible, because it's not the original ancient narrative of humanity. In fact, it was the feminine who possessed. That's why if you go back and read ancient, and I have shown you this, that originally the monad was mother, father, one being, both aspects, even in the creative light. So, the glory in our hearts departed from your mother Eve and me, as did the previous knowledge that breathed in us. So this previous knowledge wasn't just static. It wasn't just head knowledge. It was part of the very vibration of the universe, is what instilled and what existed in them. Okay? That's why when I've said in the past something about the Om is the primordial vibration sequence that created everything. That's why it's so important, and that's why nobody in Christianity needs it, cares about it, wants it, just along with meditation as well. Although meditation is even, once again, seems to be morphing some, because all that we have been told about meditation is not true. And so the glory in our hearts departed from your mother Eve and me, as did the previous knowledge that breathed in us. The glory fled from us and entered another great eon and another great generation. Wow. Isn't that a kick in the pants? It was not from this present eon from which your mother Eve and I derived. Now, I want to adjust this. The eon is not a stage in time. Actually, eons are mentioned in the New Testament. Yeshua speaks of the end of the age is how they prep that to you, because we have a connotation of an eon as being a time thing. Well, understand that in reality, outside of humanity, there is no time. Everything is happening all at once. All 27 timelines, all of my dimensional shifts that are available to me are happening right this second. Not has been, not will be, is. Right now. And so, the glory fled from us and entered another eon and another great generation. Understanding the eons were spirit beings. When I shared that with you in the beginning, what really was, eon after eon after eon was built, and a generation was built, and a dimension was built, and they existed solely for the purpose of pleasing the eon, the beings which the eon created. So we are actually just part of an eon. There are countless numbers of eons that exist this day. Not here, but all over all that is. And so the glory fled from us and entered another eon and another great generation. It was not from this present eon from which your mother Eve and I derive. That knowledge came, rather, knowledge entered the seed of the great eternal beings. So now we have seed functioning, the beginning of preparation for that will be. For this reason, I myself have called you by the name of that human who is the seed of the great generation, or from whom it comes. Now, he's talking to Seth, so he gives a giveaway to us. Adam says, I have called you by the name of another eon. That's why when these channelings from Seth come, they're not from the son of Adam, they are from the aeon. When you hear people that are channeling, if you watch any of that stuff, they constantly are talking about a collective beings, many beings. It's not just one that has this knowledge. There are many beings. And so now the aeon of Seth, when Jane Roberts channels, is coming from an aeon, a collective of beings which have the same picture, if you would. So, after those days, the eternal knowledge of God, of the God of truth, left your mother Eve and me. And dear friend, that's where you forgot what you were. And you still don't know what you are. And if I spoke for 1,000 years, you would still not know what you are. Because it's not words that help you to understand that. It's you seeking internally the kingdom. After those days, the eternal knowledge of the God of truth left your mother Eve and me. Wow, that's huge. The gnosis, the knowledge. It did not say that they ceased to be consciousness. It simply says that the knowledge of that left you. The remembering that everyone is talking about is remembering the knowledge which we possessed at one time, but has been removed from us, hidden from us, cloaked from us. And so the eternal knowledge of the God of truth left your mother Eve and me, and from then on we learned about mortal things just like human beings. Wow. If you can find something any deeper than that, well, I won't say what I would do. Then we came to recognize the God who had created us. So I wanted you to see this. By saying that, he moves one line about the monad, the God of truth, one line in all of that. Everything else was about the God, the demiurge. And here he finishes. Then we came to recognize, so it seems as if he had no consciousness of the demiurge at all. Only eternal knowledge. Only divine traits. Then we came to recognize the God who had created us. And notice he didn't say the God of truth who created us. He says the God who created us. We learned to recognize him. For his powers were not foreign to us. We served him in fear and subservience. Why does Christianity use fear to keep you in line? Because fear is the currency of the archonic realm. That's why you're scared to death that you're going to die and go to hell. It is a program, and the program produces loosh, and loosh is that which the negative energy which the archons feed off of you. What's wonderful on one level and horrible for others is that the sheer fact that somebody doesn't understand what I just shared actually says that they will continue to be a mill producing loosh, because they will continue to not believe the truth and continue their journey in fear. So, for his powers were not foreign to us. We served him in fear and subservience. One of the greatest creations that has ever been created is the consciousness, not humans. There is no greatness in you in humanity. And after that, we grew dim in our minds. So what happened? They became mindless. What are they doing? How do they live today? They are mindless. And that is the masses, and that is humanity. Mindless. And so Adam has a revelation in his sleep. I was asleep in the thought of my mind. So you notice that it says a revelation in sleep, but it doesn't say that he was actually asleep. What he says is his mind was asleep. I was asleep in the thought of my mind. And I saw in front of me three persons whose appearance I could not recognize, since they were not from the powers of the gods who created us. So he was capable of seeing the archons, which were created by the God that also created humanity, which is the God who was a jealous God, which is the God who was blind and ignorant and yet believed he was the only God, which is the only thing you know about if you believe the Bible. Outside of that, there is no other God to people lost in the materialistic realm of human beings. I could not recognize, since they were not from the powers of me. That's why people are beginning little by little to have recognition of those things that are not in the state that we are now. So what humans are doing by beginning to see traces of the archons, I see them all the time. They're around me always. And they are you too. You're just ignorant of them. I could not recognize, since they were not from the powers of the God who had created us. They surpassed in glory saying to me, Adam, or Adumah is what it would have been in Hebrew, arise from the sleep of death. So can I tell you something, friends? You're not going to die. You're already dead. Life is a return to the light, which is our essence, which is what we really are. You're already in death. And hear about the eternal realm and the seed of that human to whom life has come. We came from your partner, Eve, and you. Did you see it? It's a nice little wake-up call in Adam's mind that there's more than what he's capable of seeing, and that more is him. And when I had heard these words from the great person standing before me, even I sighed in our hearts. Perhaps some of you have recognized, even if it's as simplistic as, and I'm not talking about head knowledge, I'm talking about inside of you, you have a deep knowing that there is more than you're able to see. I know I've said that constantly on multiple occasions, usually when under stress or under pressure, and we'll talk about that because there's a new shift of revelation that's coming out about suffering and the glory of suffering. And so they surpassed in glory, saying to me, Adam, arise from the sleep of death and hear about the eternal realm, the seed of that human to whom life has come. Now, I'm not quite sure. It actually could be one or the other, or it could both of them be encompassed there. But he seems to be making a differentiation between the human who can and the human who can't. And I personally believe that it's a good possibility he's speaking even in that context of the soulless ones that are humans, but they're not eternal, and those humans who are eternal. Because that line, most people don't want to talk about it because it's so foreign. And how do you know and how do you judge? And yet all of the ancient Gnostic writers at some point talked about those who do not have the divine spark that walk on this earth and look like everyone else who does have the divine spark. And so he says, arise from the sleep of death and hear about the eternal realm, the seed of that human to whom life has come, who came from your partner Eve and you. Of course, in this concept, he's speaking of Seth and the greatness that Seth is to be, but those who are empowered, the soulful ones, the ones that do possess eternality in them, are the seed of Seth. And he's going to prove that to you, that the rest, yet again, it gets into the next phase of the Bible. I'm surprised that there's not something in here about Abraham and the lies that have been told about Abraham, but it does expose the lies that we've been told of who Noah was. And so when I had heard these words from that great person standing before me, even I sighed in our hearts. The Lord, the God who had created us, stood before us and said to us, Adam, why were you both sighing in your hearts? Don't you know that I am the God who created you? So see, immediately, because of the narrative I've given you, you now can understand the demiurge appears before Adam. This isn't Source or the monad coming to speak to Adam about this. And he says, I am the God who created you, stood before us and said to us, Adam, why were you both sighing in your hearts? Don't you know that I am the God that created you? And that I breathed into you a spirit of life, so you might be a living soul. Our eyes became dim. Then the God who created us created a son from himself and your mother Eve. In the thought of procreation, I felt a sweet desire for your mother. This is going to blow your mind. I felt a sweet desire for your mother. The power of our eternal knowledge was gone, and weakness overtook us. Why are we in a weak, fearful state? You can now know with the surety why you live in the realm that you do. And the days of our life became few. So he even had a consciousness of eternality as far as what the length of life was. I realized I had come under the authority of death. Do you know why you're hearing people say that I am light and I will never die? Because light never dies. You believe that you die when your human physical body ceases to exist, and as long as they can keep you in that lie, they have absolutely every intention of doing so. So every time you doubt your eternality, you are verifying for the demiurge that he is right and that you have no enlightenment. You have no knowledge of what you may actually be. And so we have come under the authority of death instead of the authority of life that we were created to be. Adam communicates the revelation to his son Seth. So now, my son Seth, I shall reveal to you what those people whom I once saw before me revealed to me. After I had completed the times of this present generation and the years of the generation have come to an end, then Noah will come. So he's actually speaking prophetically, told by these spirit beings who told him that there's going to be this time in which you exist, but then after you, there will be another existence. And after I have completed the times of this generation and the years of the generation have come to an end, then Noah will come, a servant of the Lord God who created us. And when you understand that one saying, you know that it doesn't have anything to do with source. We are still talking about the demiurge. And he is the demiurge servant. Noah and the flood. Eight major examples of cataclysmic floods all around the earth in every Gnostic, mystic belief system, which is where that story comes out of. It didn't come out of the Christian church or their Holy Bible. And so Noah and the flood, in that God, the ruler of the universe, might destroy all flesh from the earth because of what they seek. Well, what were they seeking would be the first question I would think that a mindful person would need to know. What is it that humans are seeking? They're seeking that which they lost. His rainstorms will pour down on those who are from the offspring of people to whom has passed the life of knowledge, which came from your mother Eve and me. Always the instigator of Eve being the carrier, always. For those people were strangers to him. After that, great angels will come on high clouds, and they will bring those people into the place where the spirit of life dwells. Come from heaven to earth. The whole population of fleshly beings will be lost in the waters. Then God will rest from his wrath. He will cast his powers on the water and endow his sons and their wives with power by means of the ark. So now you see that all of that is a construct of the demiurge, not a construct of the creator. Not the creator, the source, the light, the everything that can never be explained or even understood. And so the God will rest from his wrath. We know that source has no wrath. Source is nothing but pure love. He will always be pure love. He's not jealous of you. He's not angry at you. He is in you. Okay? And he will cast his powers on the waters and endow his sons and their wives with power by the means of the ark, along with the animals that pleased him and the birds of heaven that he called and released on the earth. So you get another piece there. The animals that exist on their earth were the construct of the demi-heirs. God will say to Noah, whom generations will call Duqum, look, I have protected you in the ark along with your wife and your sons and their wives and their animals and the birds of the heaven that you called and released on the earth. Therefore I shall give you and your sons the earth. You and your sons will rule over it as kings, and you will refrain from producing offspring of people who will stand in some other glory instead of in my presence. So there actually is an archonic thing about enlightened ones and unenlightened ones being able to come together. If you go read that again, you'll see the essence of that. There was a prohibition put that the rulers that the demi-heirs put in place on the earth could not commingle with enlightened beings. I suspect if we went and checked, you would find that the Rothschilds are part of the family of Noah and many others that are ancient. And so you must restrain from offspring. Why? Because if you sow your seed with a light bearer, then that light, that spark of divinity, will be in your children also. Noah and another generation. Then people will come to be like a cloud of great light. So do you see why they're concerned? He doesn't want this commingling. Because if the divine spark is put into these that are soulless, then even they will be changed. The children will be changed and will become divine, because divinity is and rules everything. Anything that it is in is divine, and it is eternally divine. That's why you may be the rankest sinner according to the flesh and still be divine inside of you. And so God will say to Noah, those people who have been expelled from the knowledge of the great eternal realms and the angels will come forward and stand before Noah and the realms. And God will say to Noah, why have you ignored what I told you? So now the demi-heirs is pissed at Noah. You have created another generation so that you might bring contempt upon my power. So now what you never knew is him and God are fighting each other now. And Noah will say, I tested before the might of your arm that the generation of these people did not come from me or my sons. And then you see a blank, 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 and then you see knowledge. I suspect what you will see is that if that were to be recovered, what that would actually say would be along the lines of this, that those came from gnosis, divine knowledge. Those people will be brought into the land they deserve, and a holy dwelling place will be built for them. And they will be called by the name and live their 600 years in the knowledge of incorruptibility. So what if we only live less than 100 years as a rule of thumb? What if actually for the enlightened beings in the human body was intended to live 600 years before you leave it? Do you think you would learn a greater lesson by living 6 times longer than you can in one time frame? I think that's why they use karma so powerfully, because you don't have enough time to properly learn what the lesson that you came in for in the first place. And so you have to die and come again and die and come again and die and come again, trying to access the understanding, wisdom, and knowledge that was originally intended for you to gain in the human form. And these people will be brought into the land they deserve, and a holy dwelling place will be built for them, and they will be called by the name and live there 600 years in knowledge of incorruptibility. So the knowledge they have will be pure. The knowledge, unless it is direct knowledge that you have, is almost always impure. And angels of the great light will be with them. So this is now a divine habitation of light beings, if you would. They will have no improper thought in their heart. Okay? You won't have to worry about the thoughts that are in your mind when you get your heart right, if you want to use that terminology. When you become pure in your heart, your mind will by effect be purified by the heart, because the heart rules everything, not your brain. They will have no improper thought in their hearts, but only the knowledge of God. Noah divides the earth among his sons. Then Noah will divide the entire earth amongst his sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem, and he will say to them, "My sons, listen to my words. Look, I have divided the earth among you, but serve God in fear and subservience." So you see that the programming that was put in Adam is actually the narrative that he's pumping out, is that you must live in fear. You must be scared to death. And he's teaching his sons to do so. All the days of your life, there's never going to be a relief. If you're not in fear, you have failed horribly. Pretty good way to sustain fear, huh? And do not let your offspring turn away from the face of God, the ruler of the universe. And of course, then we lose those lines. Then Shem, the son of Noah, will say, "My offspring will be pleased before you and your power. Seal it with your strong hand by fear and commandment." Did you hear what just came out of that? Who are the offspring of Shem? And what are they teaching you in the Old Testament? To live in fear. They're fulfilling the covenant promise that Shem made to the demi-heirs, even to this very day. Right in front of you. Written before they ever wrote the Bible, before they ever thought to write the Bible. So seal it with your strong hand by fear and commandment. What do they use in the Old Testament to guide their people? Fear and commandments. It's all right there. It's all right there, friends. This is nothing but archonic programming to humanity to keep us from accessing the eternal light that exists inside of humans. Seal it with your strong hand by fear and commandment. None of the offspring that have come from me will turn away from you. Why? Because we're going to write a book of fear and trembling, and we are going to teach them, and we are going to beat it into them that you must serve Yahweh, God, the ruler of the universe. But they will serve in humility and fear within the limits of their perception, which has also been skewed. That's why all that's happening right now, we've always been this. For those who are awakening, awakening is no less than the changing of perspective to see what existed in other dimensions that you never had access to. That's all that this awakening is. Your perception is being changed, and you're capable of seeing what existed that you were not allowed to see or perceive. The 400,000. Then others from the offspring of Ham and Japheth, 400,000 in number, will go out and enter into another land and sojourn there with those people who came from the great eternal knowledge. So there were other people with great eternal knowledge that were existing on this earth, and the demi-heirs says, well, what I'm going to do is Shem is going to take care of all of these Semites, all of the ones that there's massive conflict with that teach this God that you should be scared to death of. And he says, now Japheth and Ham, we're going to send them out to corrupt the others, who will go out and enter another land and sojourn there with those people who came from the great eternal knowledge. The shadow of their power will protect those who sojourn with them from all evil and all unclean desires. Then the offspring of Ham and Japheth will form 12 kingdoms, and their other offspring will enter the kingdom of another group of people. Then we will take counsel with the aeons, mortal, the great realms of incorruptibility. They will approach their god Sakla. So these great of incorruptibility, their god is Sakla, just so that you know there's another two names for Sakla. One is called Demierge, and the other name is Yaldabaoth. And they are all three the exact same creator of humanity. They are Yahweh. They are Jehovah. They are whatever name you want to put on what is deemed by Christianity to be the God that created us. We were not created by source. And I sometimes slip up and I say that, and in my mind, even if I always try to correct that because it's not a true statement, it's a leftover vestige of the lie that was propagated in me and you as well. And so they will take counsel with the aeons and mortal, the great realms of incorruptibility. They will approach their god Sakla, and they will go into the powers and accuse the great people who are in their glory. They will say to Sakla, what is the power of these people who have stood in your presence and who have separated from the offspring of Ham and Japheth and are 400,000 in number? They have been received into another realm, one from which they have come, and they have overturned all of the glory of your power and the dominion of your hand. So for those people, they will defeat the archons, and they're scared to death because what is happening is the awakening is happening, and the archons are losing food, power, energy, and they're losing control because you cannot control a divine being. And so they have been received into another realm, one from which they have come. That's the concept that we already are. They just took our memories of what we truly are and gave us a false narrative of humanity to deceive us from what we are. What we're starting to do is little by little, and maybe you're not here, maybe you're over here, and maybe you're not there, maybe you're over there. It's irrelevant because there is only one truth. And so they have been received into another realm, one from which they have come, and they have overturned all of the glory of your power. So whether you like it or whether you understand it, you are either working for the Demierge and the archons, or you are defeating them. There is no halfway in between. And as you learn who you truly are, which is exactly what Yeshua was teaching, who you truly are, you are light. End of discussion. No explanations. I'm not going to help you figure it out. If you care enough, you will go and you will hunger and you will seek until you find that which you are. And you will not be happy until that happens. And so they have been received into another realm. They have overturned all of the glory of your power and the dominion of your hand. So it's so beautiful because I've talked about the archons. Why is it important that you know how to deal with the archons after death? It's actually more important that you know how to deal with the archons after death than it is knowing how to deal with them in life. But in life, if you can learn how the archons behave, you can learn to control them in life as well, because they will continue. They will sit right back there where your head joins your spine, and they will program you over and over and over 1,000 times a day to diminish the light that you are, and you have have no knowledge of what's even going on. You actually believe that those are thoughts that you have. If you having doubts right now, does this guy have any clue about what he's talking about? Is this really true? All of those doubts are not coming from source. They're all being put in your head instantly right now. They bring doubt. Is one of the biggest manifestations of an archon. When somebody speaks a truth, you should, as you grow, you should learn to recognize it as truth, and you should also, by direct knowledge, know what's not truth. That's why I speak constantly about the spirit school that's out there that's being taught. It's false. It's not the truth. They don't teach divine relation. They teach that, I don't really know most of the time because I've heard so many different versions of it. But it never has anything to do with us being part of source in that manner. The offspring of Noah, through his son, has fully accomplished your will and the will of all of the powers in the realms where your mighty power reigns supreme. So they haven't accomplished anything outside of the realm of this earth, the realm of the archons. But those people and the people who sojourn in their glory have not done your will, and they have turned aside your entire throng. Why? Because in our world, it's happening right now. It's going to continue, and it's going to magnify. If you could go back to whatever the first person that found enlightenment, maybe a good place to start would be Krishna. Maybe a good place to start would be Buddha. Maybe a good place to start would be Yeshua. Those are all the same consciousness. They just manifested in different human bodies so that they could function in our realm. They're all exactly the same consciousness that you are. It's amazing. And so the Creator sends fire, but the generation of those people is rescued. Then the God of the aeons will hand over to them some who serve him. They will come to that land where the great people will be, who have not been defiled and will not be defiled by any desire. For their souls came not from a defiled hand, but from a great commandment of an eternal angel. Then fire, sulfur, and asphalt will be cast upon those people, and the fire and the smoke will cover those realms. The eyes of the powers of the heavenly luminaries will be darkened, and the inhabitants of the realms will not be able to see in those days. I don't know if it's true, but it's very possible that this is actually, if you do any research at all, there is an anticipated prophetic word that says that one of the things that will happen with the Enlightenment is a time where it will be just as it was in the Bible in Egypt, that for 3 days there will cease to be any light. And of course, not many people talk about that, and you never heard about it in Christianity. That's why if you only lived there and you're trying to get out of that mess now, that's why it will be quite strange to you. It is a metaphor of the story of Moses, and when that God, which is actually a creation anyways. And so, for their souls came not from a defiled hand, but from a great commandment of the eternal angel. Then fire and sulfur and asphalt will be cast upon those people, and fire and smoke will cover those realms. The eyes of the powers of the heavenly luminaries will be darkened, and the inhabitants of the realms will not be able to see in those days. But great clouds of light will descend, and more clouds of light will come down on them from the great eternal realms. Abraxas and Sablo and Gamliel will descend and rescue those people from the fire and the wrath, and take them above the realms and the domains of the powers, and take them away, living, and take them away to the realms, dwelling place of the great, there with the holy angels and the eternal realms. The people will become like those angels, for they are not foreign to them. Rather, they labor with the incorruptible seed. That, if you would like to look at that in a little bit in modern concept, you now understand, if you have looked, you now understand why you are hearing spirit guides. And I think there's some corruption in that concept. But there certainly are spirit beings we could call angels who are functioning in our world, even now. And so the illuminator of knowledge comes, the illuminator of gnosis, the revealer of divine truth. Once again, for a third time, the illuminator of knowledge will pass by in great glory, in order to leave behind some of the offspring of Noah and the sons of Ham and Japheth, to leave behind for himself trees that bear fruit. The illuminator will redeem their souls from the day of death, for all creation that came from mortal earth will be under the authority of death. But those who reflect in their hearts, and there's the key, friends. Do you know that in reality, if we listen to someone in reality and we find who they are, you will inevitably come to a place where you recognize the heart. You will find people that are mindless. You will find people who aren't getting direct knowledge. They're looking for other sources. But if you listen to them for what their heart is, and so here's one of the things that is kind of becoming a little bit preeminent. It's very difficult because we want to help people, and yet many times in situations it's not the time for the help of those people. It's not that they're not light, it's that they're not in a place to where they will allow the truth into them, and so at this time they're just not ready for enlightenment. Inevitably, it seems to appear that all those who possess light will, by the universe, inevitably be forced. I know we have a concept of free will. It's not that he's going to force you. He's just going to keep allowing suffering to come on you so that the seed of divine that's inside of you will bust forth. Some people will bust forth very easily. Some people are very open. They're very conscious. They're very mindful. And they're that even as humans. And if you're that as a human and your heart is right, you will be one of the first ones that are awakening. Others may be 10 years from now. Okay? Understand things are slightly being changed because time is being extended for how long the enlightenment that is on this earth may actually take to accomplish full consciousness, which is inevitably where we're all headed, or all of those beings of light will inevitably end up at. And so for all creation that came from mortal earth will be under the authority of death. Those are the soulless ones. Those are the children of the archons. For those who reflect in their hearts on the knowledge of the eternal God will not perish. You remember I shared with you a week or two ago, they brought out the concept of reflecting. This is where you see it yet again pop up, and now it has a purpose for reflection. Reflection is what? Reflection is looking at yourself. That would be you learning and seeing yourself for who you truly are, not who you've been told you were, not who you've been created to be, not the lie that you bought so that you made yourself into that. If you could see the quantity of masks that every one of you possess, that you live and go through your routine over and over and over again, trying to be something, and the sheer fact that you're trying to be something is proof that you are nothing. Because it's only when you become nothing by your will that you actually become something. Okay? So for all you guys that are trying to make yourself into something, if you have any wisdom, you will stop. There's nothing you need to make yourself into. You just need to recognize that you already are. And if you are, then you will behave in the manner that the light behaves. That's why I said, change the inside, the outside changes. That's why Christians could never stop people from being sinners, because they were teaching them to change the outside, and the outside doesn't help a thing. It's the inside that must change. And so the God of the powers will be troubled. I'm sorry, I jumped again. To leave behind for himself that bear trees, the illuminator will redeem their souls from the day of death. For all creation that came from mortal earth will be under the authority of death. For those who reflect in their hearts on the knowledge of the eternal God will not perish. They have received spirit not from this kingdom. Okay? The spirit, and I believe that there actually is, if you look at it in a right concept, there actually is a spirit that many people possess that is from this kingdom. But from something eternal, something angelic. Illuminator will become, I wished we had the word, Seth. And he will perform signs and wonders in order to bring contempt upon the powers and their rulers. The God of the powers will be troubled and say, what is the power of this human who is superior to us? Now, I know for many of you, you probably, because you have been under their bondage and you have accepted the rule of the fear and the commandment, and you really couldn't see it. Maybe even if you tried, it would be very hard, difficult to see. Maybe if you tried, it wouldn't be so difficult to see. You might surprise yourself at how much the divinity that lives in you would come out if you would quit trying to program the show. See, we have a really bad thing. You make plans, you talk about who you're going to marry, you go to college for years to become what you say you will be 10 years from now. How many people who have ever completed college that ever went into the field they studied for, the numbers would shock you. Because you can't control anything. You think at 29 you're going to do such and such, and at 45 it's the last thing on your mind. And so there's some things that are coming, and I've been telling you all this, but there again, I get statements from people, and I know exactly what they're listening to based on what they talk to me about. Based on the depth of their words that come from the inside of them, it's really not that difficult to see who is leading. What materialistic spirit force are you functioning under? And so there's a problem. These people will not perish. And not only that, they will begin to recognize that they're not going to perish, and they will no longer be under the constraints, the ties of fear any longer. I'm not scared. If I die, so what? What difference does it make? It really isn't all that important, dear one. The question is do I learn what I came here to learn, or do I intend on coming back? Because if I don't learn what I came here to learn, it's going to be very hard for me to awaken. The two go together, and they come out of the purity of your heart. And so this son of Seth, and he will perform signs and wonders in order to bring contempt upon the powers and their rulers. The God of the powers will be troubled and say, what is the power of this human who is superior to us? And I know that's where I stop, but stop if you can for just a second and turn and look inside at yourself and ask yourself if you can honestly say that. And that's not done as a negative statement, because if you can't say it, that is a sign, a beautiful sign to you of what you might then, as I said Wednesday night, begin to focus on. Because what you focus on is what you will be. If you focus on being corrupt, I guarantee you 100% of the times you will remain corrupt. You tell little lies to appease people, while inside you're just as black as you ever were. Nothing changed. And there's many that will live their lives out and die and do that over and over and over and over and over and over. So we enlightened beings are a vexation to the soulless people as well as the demiurge and the archons. That's why it's important that you know your authority when you do leave this body, so that you can transcend aside from them. They have no authority over you because of who you are. You got to believe that, though. I mean, it's got to be a part of you. And it is and can be but you must do your diligence to fortify that. He will arouse great wrath against that human. You want to know why Yeshua needed to die? Unfortunately, it wasn't what Christianity, that was the archons trying to kill his body, and it didn't matter because you can't kill him. And he had no fear of it. He told Pilate, I don't care, do whatever you want to do to me. It really doesn't make any difference. So everything I'm teaching you is in the Bible that Yeshua said. He taught Gnostic mysticism. He did not teach Christianity's BS. And so he will arouse great wrath against that human, and the glory will depart and dwell in holy houses it has chosen for itself. The powers will not see it with their own eyes, and they will not see the illuminator either. So here's the concept. The people around you that can't see what's happening to you have no fear, worry, or concern about anything they see, think, or anything else, because they can't see what you see. They'll never be able to. The people who say, I just don't understand what that guy's talking about, may or may not be a manifestation of that. In time, if that enlightenment comes to you, then you were one of the light workers and you just not had prepared yourself to receive the light yet, which is where lots of people are today. But as light begins to increase, more and more people will also begin to see the light. But here's the thing I can tell you for a fact. Those that are not light will never see it. So what Edgar Cayce and what Dolores Cannon spoke to the world 30 and almost 100 years ago about the soulless beings is, in fact, absolutely correct. They might be your children. They might be your grandchildren. They might be your friends at work. They are soulless, and they will never see the truth. I hate it when I hear someone, but I know what's going on when they say, well, I don't care about any of that stuff that you're talking about. For me, it's a millisecond thought, and then it's over with. Okay, I don't care. I know who you are, and you don't know who I am. Bad place to be. So, then they will punish the flesh of the human on whom the Holy Spirit has come. And so all of that you learn in Christianity about the Holy Spirit is true and yet corrupt, if you can understand that. And the Holy Spirit does not rest on everyone. And if you read the Bible, it tells you that as well. That the Holy Spirit came on some. It didn't come on all of them. The ones that the Spirit came on were the light workers. And so the angels in all the generations of the powers will use the name erroneously and ask, where did this come from? Or again, what did the words of falsehood, which all the powers have failed to understand, come from? Now, the first kingdom says of him, he came from, in a spirit and up, and there again, I hate it, but they're ancient texts. He was nourished in the heavens. He received its glory and power. He came to the bosom of his mother, and in this way he came to the water. Just so you know, there is a very different reality, and actually the true baptism that Yeshua taught is a totally mystical, if you would, ritual. And it also is tied with salt, okay? It has nothing to do with you putting drops of water on a baby's head, and it doesn't even have to do, a soulless person can do an external act of going and letting someone dunk them, and it has nothing to do with changing anything. Because baptism isn't about changing you. It's about exposing what you already are. And so, he came to the bosom of his mother, and in this way he came to the water. The second kingdom says of him, he came from a great prophet. A bird came and took the child who was born and brought him onto a high mountain. He was nourished by the bird of heaven, and an angel came from there and said to him, arise, God has given you glory. He received glory and strength, and in this way he came to the water. The third kingdom says of him, he came from a virgin womb. Does that surprise anybody? He was banished from his city with his mother and was brought to a desert place, and he nourished himself there, and he came and received glory and power. In this way he came to the water. The fourth kingdom says of him, he came from a virgin. Solomon sought her along with Pharsalo and Saul and his armies that had been sent out. Solomon himself sent his army of demons to search for the virgin. They did not find the one they sought. Why? Because they were looking for a woman who was to have a baby procreated, and the virgin has nothing to do with Mary. It's another spiritual state, just like the marriage has nothing to do. The physical connection of marriage is an outward working of what's supposed to be happening inside of you spiritually. And to search for the virgin, and they did not find the one they sought, but rather the virgin who was given to them. They brought her, and Solomon took her, and the virgin became pregnant and gave birth to the child there. And she nourished him on the border of the desert. When he was nourished, he received glory and power from the seed from which he had been conceived, and in this way he came to the water. And the fifth kingdom says of him, he came from a heavenly droplet and was cast into the sea. The abyss received him and gave birth to him and bore him up, and he received glory and power, and in this way he came to the water. And the sixth kingdom says, of course, missing word, below to gather flowers. She became pregnant from the desire for the flowers and gave birth to him in that place. And the angels of the flower garden nourished him, and he received glory and power there, and in this way he came to the water. The seventh kingdom says of him, he is a droplet and came from heaven to earth. Dragons brought him down to their caves, and he became a child, and a spirit came over him and brought him on high to where the droplet had come from. He received glory and power there, and in this way he came to the water. The eighth kingdom says of him, a cloud came over the earth and enveloped a rock, and he came from it. The angels over the cloud nourished him, and he received glory and power there, and in this way he came to the water. The ninth kingdom says of him, one of the 9 muses went away by herself. She came to a high mountain and relaxed there, so that she desired herself alone to become androgynous, and she fulfilled her desire. Androgynous, you understand, means that you create by yourself. And became pregnant from it, and he was born, and the angels over desire nourished him, and he received glory and power there, and in this way he came to the water. The 10th kingdom says of him, his God loved a cloud of desire. He produced him by his hand, and ejaculated some of the droplet upon the cloud near him, and he was born. He received glory and power there, and in this way he came to the water. And the 11th kingdom says of him, the father desired his own daughter, and she became pregnant from her father. And she cast the tomb out into the desert, and the angel nourished him there, and in this way he came to the water. The 12th kingdom says of him, he came from 2 luminaries, two stars, planets, and they nourished him there, and he received glory and power, and in this way he came to the water. And the 13th kingdom says of him, every offspring of their ruler is a word, and this word received a mandate there. He received glory and power, and in this way he came to the water, so that the desire of those powers might be satisfied. But the generation without a king says God chose him from all of the eternal realm. Just so you know, friends, we are part of the generation that Yeshua was, that is the generation without a king. He made knowledge of the undefiled one of truth to come to be in him. Did you hear it? He made choice. He chose him from all of the eternal realms. He made knowledge of the undefiled one of truth to come be in him. He said, "The great illuminator has come from foreign air and from a great eternal realm, and he illumined the generation of those people whom he had chosen for himself." So when you see the things where Yeshua says that I have other people that you know not of, he's actually telling you a very, very, very profound truth. I've heard many, many debates amongst Christian pastors about what that means. That he had another sect over here. So he had the Essenes, and over here he had something else, and over here he had something else. And sorry, that's a micro version of the macro. You don't know what the aeons are and how many of them actually exist. And he said, "The great illuminator has come from foreign air, from a great eternal realm, and he illumined the generation of those people whom he had chosen for himself, so that they might illumine the whole eternal realm." You are the light of the world, friends. The purpose for us that have no kingship over us is to come and to help others to join what they already are. And I guess we'll stop right there. We'll leave off with the final vindication of the seed of Seth. You might do yourself a favor and listen to some of Jane Roberts. They're quite amazing. It'll be probably difficult for most people to keep up with them because they're moving from a place of knowledge. But I promise you that the universe knows how to plant those seeds quite deeply. So I hope you guys will. Will take a hold of this. It's not if we've been deceived. We have been deceived. The beauty of that deception is that it had nothing to do with us. What does have to do with us is the freeing from the deception, and that source won't do for you, and only you can do for yourself. And so I hope you guys will begin even more an internal journey of looking inside of you. This isn't about anything that we have been told all of it was about. This is all about us joining what we already are, recognizing, learning what we already are, learning the power that we possess, learning that I really am a sovereign and that there is no one that controls me. I control everything. And so I hope you guys in humility will take that and not let ego and pride get to you and think, you stand on top of the mountain like Sakla and declare that you are God. Unfortunately, I've heard people make comments like that because of the teachings that we are, as Yeshua said, we are Elohim. And in reality, if you understand Elohim, it simply means that you are a powerful one. It doesn't mean that you're a God as we were proposed, but we do have an immense amount of power, and you're going to watch it come to pass here very shortly. The healing is already starting. It's already starting. People are already starting by energy to heal and by frequency to heal. And it's going to continue. And not only is it going to continue, the more that everyone that awakens to who they truly are adds to the collective. So once again, we may be individualized as far as human bodies go, but as far as our collective spirit goes, we're all part of the exact same collective. And so I hope if you can wrap your mind around that, and I hope if you can't, that you will continue to seek and trust that the universe will bring the things that you have need. Maybe he did today, and you may not even recognize it yet. So peace and shalom to each and every one of you. We're going to take a few minutes here. We're going to hopefully bless you with a few songs, and then we'll look at a few things at the end for just a very short minute. And namaste. glad to get an opportunity to hopefully be a blessing, bring some pleasure, charge there with some positive frequency. It's always wonderful. We've always functioned in frequency, no matter whether we understand that or know that. Even before there was music per se, instruments, there was frequency, and so it really has a lot to do with everything. So the first song is kind of sitting in a situation of really being about us, looking inside of ourselves to find that reality. And oftentimes we have a reality for other people and then a reality for us. And I know that we're very prone to that, but the reality is that reality is the same for everybody. It's just a matter of where you're at and how you're perceiving it. The song is called Before You Accuse Me.
Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. God You know things don't go to suit you, child. You really won't lose your mind. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Got a full faith grown eye. You can help someone else. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Yourself up been trying, but keeping the truth alive and hell.
All right. Does it mean that we don't see anything? Well, no more than the teaching of Yahusha, where he says that the first thing we must do is pull the beam out of our own eye for the purpose of helping other people. And you know, we live in a world, and I guess at so many levels, you know, there's so much dispersion, and we have such divide in the world, and especially in the United States right now. I mean, and I'm sure to be quite fair that both sides of whatever equation you're talking about, both sides have validity according to their perspective. But the question, I guess, for us isn't about does the other side have validity. I guess all of us collectively should be asking the question is does our perception have validity? Are we really seeing things the way that they are? Or what if there is truth to this thing of spirit forces that are constantly programming your mind and your parents' mind and society's mind and education's mind, and you just go on and on and on. And so if you can even for a second find peace with the reality that there may be some archonic system, then it wouldn't probably be very difficult to understand that there are forces out there that don't necessarily mean goodwill towards humanity. While on the other side, I believe we're kind of setting to a point in reality where we're about to get a reality awakening with what's going to happen over the next few years. How do you guys think that the world's going to change when all of a sudden they quit lying to us and telling us about the millions of times that people, ships and things from other places have really been in our possession, but because of our low dimension, we just can't see them to perceive that they have existed, and they do. And now we have the government finally, thank goodness for someone that has a brain, finally releasing this stuff. And you know, there's been a lot of people, folks, that have seen things and gone through things and experienced some really pretty horrible things, and nobody believed them. And of course, that's not all that uncommon. We're supernatural beings for the most part, and yet most people don't believe that either. So it really is the narrative that's been fed to you and how you view that. So the next song that we're going to do is I think the wonderful perspective. We did one last week, and I hope we do one every week. And it just simply has to the concept of humility and being thankful for all that we've been given, whether we're going through a lot of stuff, we should still thank Him. When things are good, we should thank Him. But I promise you that that pressure that causes that seed to bust out of enlightenment will only come out of difficult struggles, and yet inevitably that struggle will cease to be, and it will be one of the greatest blessings that we've ever experienced. I thank you.
Didn't have to love us, but you did, but you did, but you did. And I thank you. You didn't have to love us, but you did, but you did, but you did. And I thank you. Take it, book of love to show. You know what it means to find love and well. He made me feel like I never felt. We repent and cry for help. He didn't have to free us, but he did, but he did, but he did. And I thank you. He didn't have to feed us, but he did, but he did, but he did. And I thank you. Every day I learn something new. Pick up your words and be friends with you. You keep showing words anew, just so I can keep walking with you. Didn't have to love us, but you did, but you did, but you did. And I thank you. You didn't have to make us, but you did, but you did, but you did. And I thank you. All my life I've been in pain. Without your love, Creator, life's a shame. But now I know what I've been talking about. Hear your words so I can praise and shout. I wanna thank you. I wanna praise you. I wanna thank you. I wanna praise you. I wanna thank you. I wanna praise you.
All right, what a wonderful, you know, it really is a gift to be in a place consciously enough that you can, even in bad times. So if you're in that now, or let's say you've been in that and you kind of wondered and questioned, and I think probably all of us do. I know I've certainly been there many times where I lose sight of the reality that this is happening, and there actually is several reasons sometimes why suffering is in our life, and some of it is on us, and then there's the other pieces that are on us because we are still resisting the Ruach, the Spirit, the divine light, and I love that about the faithfulness of Source. He gives you free will, and then he keeps pointing you towards the right path to go. So I don't know if you played much video games, sometimes there's games and they have the little flashing arrow that pops up that's pointing in the direction. And that's exactly how the source of all is. This isn't now, or has it ever been a plan of failure, but it is certainly a journey that we have to choose to take up. And so, you know, the reality is, friends, probably if every one of us, if we could accomplish this on our own, we would have already done it. And the truth is that we can't, and yet we can. And so the name of the song is All on My Own.
I ran down that mountain, blinded by jealousy.
creators. What an amazing thought, just to ponder that. You know, if I guess from where you're at in your mind, that could maybe be a bad thing, because that kind of takes away all the excuses that we've been so programmed to use, and it puts us in a place where we must then take responsibility for what we've done. On the other wonderful, amazing side is that opens up the universe to everything that we could possibly ever dream is contained in that universe. And you just simply need to ask yourself, what is it that I want? What is it that I desire to create? Do I want good? Do I want to live a full life? Do I want to live a happy life? Do I want to see wonderful blessings come on not only myself but on other people, or of course the other side? And I can't often I can't imagine that somebody would want that, but then I stop and think and I go, well, you know, isn't that kind of where we've all been living anyways? We have a lot of chaos in our world and a lot of reasons for the chaos. And so it's quite amazing to me that we have come this far in such a short amount of time. And so I recognize from that truth is more powerful than deception. If it takes you a long time to get there through deception, it won't take you too long to get back from truth. When you encounter truth, it will radicalize your heart and your mind. And so, you know, although we've never been without him, we certainly, in many cases, and maybe some still are, you feel lonely. What a profound comment and thought to have, that you have never, Source has never left you. Through all the things you've done, all the thoughts you've had, all the bads you've done. See, we really sometimes have a pretty skewed picture of who Source is. And Yahusha said it, you will do these things and then you will repent, and it'll only be against you. I can't even deal with that one still. The reality that we think that when we say we're sorry, it's okay and it makes everything all right. And the reality that Source wants is for us to fly like an eagle and to live in abundance and power and love and peace. And those are the desires of your Source and my Source for each and every one of us. And so the song we're going to do is the concept of being without him. It's not that he is ever, he is with you, he is in you, but your lack of acknowledgement is where we get this separation concept that somehow I'm separate from God, when in fact he's always been here.
Yeah, I mean,
What amazing, that's amazing to me, crazy. It's like, man, tell me more, tell me more. How do I embrace this, all that is me, and yet I have no knowledge of it? How do I embrace that? Life without you.
Life without you, Creator. Life without you'd be hard to bear. My spirit mind led me to pray. No need to suffer. We made no mistake. I call your name. I call your name. You're always there. Life without you, Creator. Life without you'd be hard to bear.
Well, I hope you've been blessed. We are all blessed, and if you feel the turning of these things and you recognize that there might be something more, you recognize that something isn't what you always thought it is, that's an amazing sign. And I would just encourage everybody that you put aside some of the things maybe make you feel, but it's really not meant to condemn you. The truth that was given to us is given to bring us to a place of, if you want to, sobriety, a place of open mind. That's why in one place, I think it was Paul said that we are supposed to be circumspect, not as fools. Well, both of those words, he's not calling anybody a fool. He's just saying that fools act like they're asleep, and what we need to be acting like is that we are awake, because it's only through that will coming out of us and our focus on it, that we truly can become awake. And so I hope that you'll take that and use it. What a wonderful blessing it is to us that there were ancients out there, and yes, we got a version that wasn't very pure, but thank goodness the universe has said to all humanity, I'm still here and we're still winning. So we'll be back in just a minute. All right. Well, the world is wonderful, whether we realize it or not, or whether we're experiencing that. I think that that maybe there be people who are starting to recognize, and maybe it comes from a bad place for some people. They haven't lived a good life. They've had the wrong thought processes. They've been unhappy, whatever the case may be. But the minute that you start doing something right and you begin to watch the truth manifest, I think there's going to be a lot of people who, of their own free will at that point, will recognize that that's much better than what I've been living. And I hope that all of those that are living in chaos eventually come to that place. And then, of course, over the course of a longer term, I believe that the universe is going to continue. It does seem to be kind of a foreign concept and I've never heard this in all of my life in Christianity. I never heard that suffering was good. We still rage about what the Jews did to Yahusha, and yet Yahusha himself didn't rage. He simply said, "This is part of the thing, man," and so that's, I don't know, I think that's a piece of profound wisdom for all of us. I said it earlier, and it really is becoming quite potent, the reality that though I've felt alone and felt separated, I think what we're doing is we're missing the spiritual significance, and we're letting our emotions cause us to create reality in the physical, materialistic realm and forgetting the spiritual realm. Maybe it won't be for you, but for me it was great comfort. And many times I've had situations, and it doesn't mean that I'm perfected and I don't ever have them, but I do notice that I seem to recover a lot faster from the things that, if you would deem, that hurt you, or the things that upset you. You can look at this stuff on every level. All of us are such a paradox of emotions. It's actually quite amazing that anyone ever finds enlightenment. And in the ancient past, there really weren't that many people who found enlightenment. It was very secretive because of Christianity, and prior to Christianity, and even prior to Yeshua, it was a very sacred place, because the people who were ascended understood the sacredness of the light source that lived in them. And we live in a place where people play fast and loose because that's what Christianity tells them is okay to do. And you can certainly, you have the freedom to do that, but it hasn't really worked very well for many people. And so this is there's really not one thought or one decision that we can ever make that will be more important than accepting the reality of the truth. And if that is foreign to you, then it's just foreign to you. You still have to make the decision. So the morning of the 18th, he shares, and this really bears with quite a bit of the things that Adam was saying. Does it surprise anybody that Christianity would try to destroy that document that we read this morning? Doesn't surprise me a bit. I'm really surprised that that the universe hid for us examples of things that would come out. Now, I can't imagine it was said of the Alexandrian library that all of the knowledge that had ever existed in the world, there was a copy of it in the Alexandrian library. And I understand why so many people who were Gnostics spent their time studying, because it sounds real good to tell people that they don't need anybody, but it's so funny to me that all the people that are telling people they don't need anybody are the ones that are selling their trips and their retreats and their it's certainly there's a lot of money scam that goes into that stuff. The truth is that we all are part so we really don't need anyone in the proper context, but that don't need one is when we begin to recognize that we are all one. And if that, when I say that, if that still is strange to you or foreign, or your mind just really can't deal with it, it's okay. It's one of the most amazing truths that's ever been brought, is that we must separate ourselves. And I'm not talking about separate ourselves from the world, although there's certainly a piece of that, but we must separate ourselves. We must separate ourselves from, are we going to function as a human, or are we going to function as a spirit being? And unfortunately, inevitably, you'll come to a place in your life where you have to make a decision. You can't do both. You can't live materialistically and somehow think you're going to somehow magically awaken. It ain't going to happen. If this isn't the most sacred thing that you've ever done in your life, then I suspect you will continue to play the game for a long time. But when you're willing to get outside of that and to recognize that there really isn't anything else that you will ever do on this life that has any value put next to this. And so each individual person obviously has to come to that. Many won't, some will. And the ones that do will certainly experience some amazing things that Yeshua told us that we were supposed to be. I used to ask that in Christianity. Well, why isn't every church experiencing healings and supernatural things going on when none of these churches have ever experienced it? And they have to concoct stories and pay people that were part of my youth group to try to pay them to make the preachers look spiritual. If that's what you have to do to try to make yourself look spiritual, doesn't that kind of explain why you're not spiritual? It does for me, and it did then. It did even when I was in the youth and went to church and saw the things that I saw. So as we progress along, what comfort might come out of the reality of knowing that you and Source are one, and that Source isn't your enemy, and that Source has been with you through every stupid thing you've ever done, but you have free will. You get to choose to do that if that's what your desire is. And so it certainly is a journey of who we are inside. And I hope you'll continue. If you've begun that, and if you haven't, then I hope that Source will bring whatever needed to awaken your eyes to the need for it. So the 18th morning, let's see how he speaks, how close he is to what has been kind of exposed today. The gospel of Jesus is a gospel of living and doing. If it were not this, it would not voice the eternal truth. And so he has a concept and understanding of the eternal truth, and that eternal truth is that no one can do it for you, and if you choose to do nothing, then nothing will happen to you. And I don't mean that. I mean simply you will stay locked into the desperation and the anxiety and the hatred and the unhappiness and the unpeacefulness, and everything you touch will be screwed up, and you live that life, and you learn to call that life. And but it doesn't have to be that way, but it will be that way unless you choose to do something else. It's not prophesying that on someone. That is a law that has been and always will be, that whatever seed that you sow, that is the seed that you will reap. If you sow discord, whatever it is, that's what your life is going to be. And I guess there's a lot of people that like to live in that crap, but I can't stand it personally. I don't even like to be around people that do. It's spiritually, it's so loud and horrible and nasty, their meanness, and it's so easy to see if you just open your eyes a little bit. It's why people, and I kind of understand why the Amish people shun the people in their following that refuse to do what's right, because at a frequency level, whether you know it or not. Some of these people that people think are outside of the thing, they're outside of the thing because they know some things that you don't know. And I believe the Amish people are one of those. Why do they shun their children that don't behave? Because they can't tolerate to even be around them frequency-wise. You once you learn that these frequencies and those feelings when you walk around someone and it causes immediate dissonance, or you walk in a room and somebody opens their mouth and something goes through you, folks, those aren't things we're supposed to close our eyes to. Now, we have to examine ourselves and see if what they said it actually is what caused the dissonance in us, or was it how we thought, or what's going on in us is what caused the dissonance. And many people will never do that part either. It's always somebody else. So I get a lot of senses, a lot of times psychic things when I walk around people. Situation can go bad, and I know this guy's pissed off, or this guy has a bad attitude, or this person really has a foul smell to them right now. And I don't mean physically, I'm talking spiritually. And you should learn to be able to experience that. But it's typically not just simply because typically because of the lack of truth, whether on their part or yours. And but it is a gospel, a good news of living and doing. And I hear a lot of the teaching that is not about living and doing. I don't need to create anything. I already am, and you don't need to create anything. You already are. The question is will you let that rule your life? And so if it were not this way, it would not voice the eternal truth. Its temple is purified conduct, the entrance door to which is self-surrender. It's so funny, Mahatma Gandhi, the Yogananda, Babaji, all of the spiritual enlightened ones, Yahusha was one of them, that it doesn't mean that they don't use their emotions properly, but you recognize that even in the bad, they have the peace that Yeshua talked about, the peace that passes all understanding. So when people are coming against me, or people are doing things to harm me, it doesn't mean that I don't see that. In fact, in most cases, it means that you see it more clear than unenlightened people. But what it does mean is that you're going to make the right decision about what your reaction is, instead of just simply functioning on autopilot, which is where we're all taught, right? Somebody says something, you could fix all the triggering and all the Karens in the world. You could fix them instantaneously if they took 5 seconds to think about what's really been said. You wouldn't have triggering. And I have people all the time that don't say that. That just, that triggers me. And it's like, well, good for you then, because anything is capable of triggering you, which means you're totally not in control. And so it invites men to shake off sin and promises as a result joy, blessedness, and perfect peace. And that completely goes with what I just said a while ago. You get to choose. If you like the unhappiness, just continue to do. People will disown you. They will push you away. They don't want to have nothing to do with you because they can't stand your frequency. And so here's a word to those people that make that choice. I wouldn't expect for anyone to have a consciousness that it's going to get easier from here on out, because here's what's going to happen. And inevitably there will be a split completely, but until that split of consciousness happens, what you're going to find is, and there's cries going out in the spirit realm right now, massively, people that are asking the monad to send them the other enlightened spirits that they can be around. There's going to be more division coming in the next 2 years than you can imagine. There's going to be separations of whole societies because one can't stand the other. They're not interested in putting up with it anymore. I want to go around people who vibrate where I do, not people who don't. And so, on the positive side, that's going to be a blessing because it will be a joyous time. On the other negative side is that also is going to function, that negative people are going to be forced into other negative people to the point that they kill each other because they're all so unhappy. So get ready. It's coming. It's in many ways it's already functioning. A lot of the war that the spiritists are talking about isn't wars with countries. We only have a couple of those, which is the least that this world has ever seen. It's not the war that's being talked about. It's the war between low frequency and low vibration and high frequency and high vibration. And the two will not stay together for much longer. They will be separated completely. So, of course, always, as always, it's a choice, that you love yourself and just ask yourself, what does that even mean? Does love yourself mean you make yourself so unhappy and everybody else around you that nobody wants you around them? Well, if that's what you call happiness, then I'm pretty sure you'll get plenty of it. But on the other side, if that's not your perception of what happiness is, then you'll begin to look for people who can bring happiness into your life. And it invites men to shake off sin and promises, as a result, joy and blessedness and perfect peace. The kingdom of heaven is not perfect trust. If you have doubts, here's a piece that kind of goes with the archons for some people. If you have doubts, that isn't necessarily, although you've probably been told that, it's not necessarily a negative emotion. Sometimes our higher self is the one telling us to doubt. On the other side, we then have the feeding of the narrative of the archons directly into your mind, and you have to mature to a level that you can discern which is it. Is this coming because of me, or is this coming because of them? And the them is still an archonic force. It doesn't matter whether it's a person you work with or somebody that you've known. It makes no difference. Archons use any mind that isn't in control or isn't being controlled by the spirit that exists inside of it. And so people voice their doubts. You say, well, I believe God's going to start healing people, and immediately they're going to tell you how that's probably never going to happen. And you know what? They're right. For them, it never will. But for those others, they'll take that doubt and they'll say, yeah, but Source told me that we are supposed to be healing people. You see that in Yeshua's teaching. He said, you would do more than I do. That's still profound, that his anticipation for humanity, and it will happen for the first time in history as this enlightenment continues. You will begin to see collectively healings and things that you think, and tomorrow it manifests itself instead of you think and 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 pray and cry and beg and ask and nothing ever happens, which is what most of us grew up in Christianity. So the kingdom of heaven is perfect trust, perfect knowledge, and perfect peace. Think about that. You've been so brainwashed by the archons in Christianity that none of us are perfect. Well, I promise you, if you tell yourself that, you'll eventually quit trying to be. And so we live in a society that's totally confused about what is even reality. And so no sin can enter therein, no self-born thought or deed can pass its golden gates. No impure desire can defile its radiant robes. All may enter it who will, but all must pay the price. It's like the whole concept that suffering is actually the thing that the universe, for some of you this might be quite surprising, but that suffering is what the universe uses to force the ignition of the seed inside of you of the supernatural. And how many times have you watched that? People, if things go well with them, all of a sudden you don't hear them very much, but when things aren't going well, all of a sudden they're the spiritual giant. And that's very very indicative of human nature. When I have all that I need, I don't need God. And really that's typically the time when the stage is being set for you to have a really massive need of Him. So, no impure desire can defile its radiant robes. All may enter it who will. So you do hear that. These things are not to lock anybody out. Everyone who possesses the light is capable of experiencing the light. But all must pay the price, the unconditional abandonment of self. And I said it before and I must say it again. The ego is going to destroy more people than probably any other thing. And the ego is also operated by the archons. So, the 18th evening, I say this and know it to be truth, that circumstances can only affect you insofar as you allow them to do so. Circumstances, we live in such a reactionary mode constantly, you know, and when I say that, there's nobody at whatever part in their life that they move forward, well, wonderful, because that falls off, but all of us have lived in a state of reaction from the time we were little bitty kids. And some that seems, I don't understand all the mental aspects of why some people seem worse at this. I think there's probably a lot of mental reasons that we could find out if we research scientifically, and I know that they have. They know exactly what it takes to trigger you. The CIA of our government has more research in spiritualism than anything. It would probably shock you if you went and looked at how much spiritualism our government has been using since our very inception, since this country was founded, other than the real country, the true America, that was the American Indians, and the white man came to destroy the spirituality that the American Indians lived in. Whether you know it or not, that's exactly what they did. They brought the Archon system to the United States. Those people lived in peace. Did they have conflict? Absolutely. You steal my horses, I need my horses, I'm going to come take them back. But in the midst of all of that, they lived in the spirit realm and dealt with the spirit realm. And so, you know, who on earth could castrate thousands of people and give unsolicited hysterectomies to American Indian women by the thousands and have no conscience about doing so? I promise you that America and the founding of it is not high consciousness. So we kind of started out on a bad leg to begin with, and we never got much better. So you are swayed by circumstances because you have not a right understanding of the nature, use, and power of your thought. Everyone who has ever gone to prison for their bad behaviors had an opportunity to use that same genius. And I think it is true. I think a lot of the people who are spending their life and have been killed by the prison systems or whatever, that I really believe that those people in many cases have a superior intellect to the people that they do harm to. It's not that bad people are stupid. Most of them are extremely intelligent. It's that inside of them, they're corrupt. And so, you know, how do you fix a corrupt person? You don't. They have to fix themselves. And if they choose not to, then they'll just continue to do corruption until you make them stop. And however you have to make them stop is what is decent and reasonable. So sometimes that I don't want to go there. I don't want to live there. I don't want to be there. And even more than that, I have no problems in saying I don't want to be around that. So you are swayed by your circumstances because you don't have a right understanding of nature, the use and power of our thought. Our nature is amazing. We are phenomenal beings. And that's, as I said, that's already working out little by little. I hope that some of you can see that there is already a transitioning to a class of people who are moving towards a higher being, and I think it's worldwide. It's probably millions. Uh, so we need a new understanding then, and we need to learn how to think all over again. You believe, and upon this little word, belief, hang all of our joys and our sorrows, that outward things have the power to make or mar your life. And it's not so. Why do you think that there are so many people? You have somebody like Ben Carson who was raised by his mother. They didn't have two pennies, and yet he's one of the greatest surgeons that there is. Why did he do that? Don't you know that there were millions of kids just like him? Why aren't they all surgeons? Why aren't they all professors? Why aren't they all doing great things? Because it only comes from what you are within you. If you got a lot of money, you would destroy yourself because you're still unhappy inside. And you can tell people that are this, and it won't affect them. They'll get up and tomorrow do some kind of heinous crap to somebody again and have no consciousness of it. Inevitably, we as higher beings are also obligated to let those things happen and let those people pay the price for their sin. If you want to use the word sin, it's what they're doing against their self. That's why I say sin. So, you believe, and upon this little word belief, you hang all of our joys and our sorrows, that outward things have the power to make or to mar your life, when in fact you're the one that has the power to make or mar your life. And by so doing, you submit to those outward things. You confess that you are their slaves. Well, I just couldn't stop myself. How many times have you heard that, and how many times have you been that? And they are your unconditional master. Whether you believe it is, whether you call me a liar, it doesn't change anything. You got a pig ring in your nose, and you're being drug around by the archons, and they're laughing at you for how stupid you are to not be able to recognize it. And yet you think that you're extremely intelligent. So, by so doing, you invest them with a power which they do not of themselves possess. The archons do not have the power to control us. In fact, there are many things that we are actually given powerful, lost knowledge, but it is knowledge that's being revealed. And so we're kind of in a unique time, because I never heard the word archons, and now I know situations where people are actually having conversations with the archons in the spirit realm. Somebody asked about mediums and stuff. Why don't they ever talk about archons? Because they're totally oblivious to that many of those spirit guides are actually archons. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. So by so doing, you invest them with a power which they do not of themselves possess. It's you gave them the power, and you succumb in reality not to the circumstances, but to the gloom or gladness, the fear or the hope, and the strength or weakness which your thoughts fear has thrown around them. Or in other words, the illusion that you tie to something. Well, have you ever had somebody who says, well, it didn't work out the way I thought it was going to? Yeah. You know how many people have destroyed their lives, and that was their epitaph? Guys, I don't know who believes what, but I'm going to tell you right now, whatever, if your life sucks, it sucks because you made it that way. And if your life is wonderful and amazing, it's wonderful and amazing because you made it that way. So it really only leaves us with a decision or two. That's why on Wednesday when I talked about, have you ever considered living your life according to frequency? What did I mean? If you understood it all, then wonderful. But I have a feeling, a knowing that many people didn't get the essence of what was being said. What does it mean that I live my life according to frequency? Well, many of the things that I've talked about today. If we recognize that frequency is shifting, that we are feeling dissonance. Maybe you're around someone and you're talking and you all of a sudden begin to feel a dissonance, a dis-ease, a unpeacefulness. Pay attention. The universe isn't giving that to you. Now, if you're not a good person, you're functioning in the same realm, but it's exactly backwards. Because people who are doing right are going to make bad people feel dissonant. So the same system, as inside, so is your life. If you're corrupt and screwed up in your heart, your life is corrupt and screwed up. It's easy to diagnose, really easy to diagnose once you learn just a few simple things. Well, why is that life like it is? It's like it is because that's who that person is inside. They want to be different, they have to change the inside. If they want a different life, they have to, of their own free will. I remember in Christianity, of course, I grew up around, dancing in the aisle, speaking in tongue Pentecostals. And my God, they would send their children to hell and then wonder why their children went to hell. I mean, it's just that simple. But inevitably, when it's all said and done, you are the one that made that decision for whatever it may be. You hear a lot, and words do have power, so don't think I'm in any way diminishing that. But another manifestation of that is our concept that simply speaking words bring those words to pass. Oftentimes, those words come out of intuitive knowledge that has been given to someone through a spirit force. It's not prophesying, it's telling you what is that you do not know the answer to. This is going to happen to that person because of their behavior. And so on that, it really becomes a very, very base, very low key spirituality, but it's still necessary and it's certainly beneficial. So, but if every time that you begin to feel your frequency drop off, doesn't mean it's time to run, but it does mean it's time to pay attention. And oftentimes, whatever's going on needs to happen. That's sometimes part of suffering, is being put in bad situations and having to figure out how to defeat or control or overcome that bad situation. And you can't do that if you simply jump and run. And that's starting to come out in the other world. I've been speaking it for a while, but it's starting to come out in other really people that are starting to say that same message, that if all you ever can come up with for spirituality is you're so weak that you have to run every time there's a bad situation, then you're really not spiritual, because spirituality creates strength. You don't have to be weak anymore. And so, but that there again, it goes back, all of it goes back to the same point, that you have the power to choose one of those two. And you only need to ask yourself, which am I going to choose? So I hope that you will make the right choice. And I'm sure for all of us, probably at least one more time in our life, we might make the wrong one. But for others, there won't be a change. They'll just continue on. So if you are doing that, don't let the setbacks or the failings be the thing that determines your movement forward, or whether you end up inevitably in moving backwards. You still do have inside of you the ability to overcome every obstacle that presents itself. And so I hope you'll take that, begin to walk in a little more of a spiritual realm. When you find out that spirituality is 24/7, there isn't any time to not be spiritual, then I think you would, if you are there, wonderful. I know you'll experience, and if you're not there, I think you might be surprised at how much movement you can actually experience when you begin to listen to yourself. And I don't mean the words, I'm talking the feelings. I'm talking the things inside of you that come, the intuition that tells you don't do it, and you chose not to, and you did it, and then you paid a price. So in that way, it is a true statement that all that you need is already inside of you. But just because it exists does not mean you can access it. I think that's the big struggle I'm trying to get people to grab a hold of. You may have it inside of you, but it's useless. You can't access it. And that's a lot. That's a lot more than we realize. So peace to you guys. I hope you take some of this stuff. I hope it helps you, and I hope you see a better life and a brighter day, and you begin to free yourself from some of the archonic chains that have tried to grind you down, because you weren't made to be chained by that. You were made to be free. And so peace to each and every one of you in your journey for freedom. I hope you have an amazing week. Namaste.